Hi everyone, it's Lena again. In this video, I will give you a brief introduction to assignment 3. Sorry that the quality of the video might be a little bit lower. I do not have access to the streaming setup right now, so sorry for that. So in assignment 3, you will have to implement a card game for 2 players, which we call Syntax Sakura, which is a play on the original name this game is based on, which is Ohanami, which is a Japanese name. This card game is for 2 players, so you will have to read a list of cards from a configuration file as a first step, and then distribute those cards to the 2 players. And afterwards, during the game, the 2 players take turns choosing cards and choosing cards from their hand cards and then creating rows on the table. So each player has their own rows, which they can create and add to during the game. And at the end of the game, so after all cards have been placed, each player gets points for their own rows, and the player with the most points wins the game. The deadline for this assignment is the 17th of January 2024 at midnight. And assignment 3 is worth 40 points. A little bit about the specifications again. The general specifications on the course website are still valid, and also memory management is still relevant. But there are also some additional specifications which you should take care to follow. So each card in the game must be stored as a struct. All cards must be stored on the heap. Then each row of cards must be stored as a linked list. So rows of cards in this case mean the player's hand cards. There are chosen cards, which I will explain on the following slides. And also the rows of cards that the player puts down on the table. So all of those must be stored as a linked list. And you should also take care to read in the user inputs dynamically using reallog, because now in assignment 3 the user input can be of an arbitrary length. So if you try to save this in a buffer and the buffer is not long enough, then your program will have problems. So you must be able to read in the user inputs dynamically in assignment 3. I will now show you an example game, which is the same example that is also in the assignment description example outputs. So here you can see we've got a configuration file which contains a list of cards. Each card has a color and a number. So there are 4 different colors: green, red, white, and blue. And the colors are only used for the scoring in the end. So for the game logic and the game rules, only the numbers are relevant, but you still need to save the colors because you need them to score the points at the end. So now we distribute those to the 2 players. So player 1 gets the first card from the configuration file, player 2 gets the second card, player 1 gets the third card, player 2 gets the fourth card, and so on until each player has gotten 10 hand cards. So there might be additional cards in the configuration files. Those cards are then not needed for the game and can be ignored. So only 10 hand cards per player. So the next step is to sort those cards in ascending order. So imagine you're playing with real cards. You would like to sort the cards in your hand in some kind of order so you can get an overview. And in this case, the cards are sorted in ascending order by the numbers. Next, the first game round can start. So each game round consists of 2 phases, a card choosing phase and an action phase. And I will now describe to you the card choosing phase, which is the first part of the game round. In the card choosing phase, each player chooses 2 cards from their own hand cards. So here we see the setup after distributing the cards, and player 1 now will choose 2 hand cards to put into their chosen cards. So player 1 chooses this red 89 and this red 67, and the chosen cards are also sorted in ascending order, as you can see here, and also take care, those also need to be stored as a linked list, because this is also a row of cards. It's just only 2 cards long, but you need to follow the same specification. Next, player 2 needs to choose 2 cards. So player 2 takes it easy and chooses this 5 and this 29. And then we move on to the second part of the card choosing phase, where the players swap their remaining hand cards with each other. So you can see here, player 1 has a row of hand cards which starts with 14, and player 2 has one that starts with 30. And now those 2 remaining hand cards are swapped. So now player 1's hand cards start with 30 and player 2's hand cards start with 14. So all the hand cards are swapped. The chosen cards remain with the player. This is the end of the card choosing phase, and now the action phase can start. So player 1 has the hand cards that they got from the other player and the chosen cards that they chose themselves. And now player 1 can input commands and do actions until they have done something with both their chosen cards. So there's for example, a help command which only outputs a text, but there are 2 possibilities to do things with the chosen cards. So the first one is a place command. So for example, here the player uses a place 189, which means they want to place the card with the number 89, which has to be contained in the chosen cards. You cannot put any number here. So there needs to be some error handling here. In row 1. So since row 1 did not exist previously, it's just a new row is created. Here you have to take care that each player can create a maximum of 3 rows during the whole game. So here you can see those rows 2 and row 3 are still empty, but they are placeholders because only 3 rows can be created per player. And also empty rows will not be printed in the program, but rows that contain cards will. We still have, player 1 still has 1 chosen card, so it's still player 1's turn. And this card is, it's another place command. Once again, place 167. So this means that card 67 will be added to row 1. And here the program should automatically place this card at the correct end of the row. So if the number of the card is lower than the lowest card in the row, it should be placed at the beginning. And if the number of the card is higher than the highest card in the row, it should be placed at the end. And the card cannot be inserted in the middle of the row. So you also need to implement error handling for the case that the player tries to add a card to a row where it doesn't fit. So yeah, now player 1 has handled both their chosen cards, and this means that it is now player 2's turn in the action phase. So now we swap to player 2. Player 2 has these hand cards and the chosen cards. And now I will show you the other command that you can do with chosen cards, which is a discard. So discard 5 means that the card with the number 5 will be deleted from the chosen cards of the player. This is meant to be for the case where a card cannot be added to any of the rows. Because at the end of the game, there can be situations where a card cannot be added. And in this case, the player needs to discard this card. The player also has the possibility to discard a card earlier if they do not want to place it. So a discard command just removes a card from the chosen cards, and the card will not be needed any further in the game. So player 2 but still has another chosen card, so we still need to do something with that one. Here we say, yeah, we want to place this in row 2, so it's a place 229, and the card number 29 is placed in row 2. Since row 2 didn't exist previously, a new row is created with card 29. Player 3 also can create a maximum of 3 rows during the whole game. So now player 2 has no more chosen cards. This means the action phase has ended and the next game round starts. Once again with the card choosing phase, as I explained before. Now, when all cards have been placed or discarded, so neither player has hand cards or chosen cards left, the game ends. And now there is a scoring. So players now get points based on the color of the cards in their rows. So each blue card is worth 3 points, each green card is worth 4 points, each white card is worth 7 points, and each red card is worth 10 points. And additionally, the points of each player's longest row are doubled. So let me give you an example of that. Here you can see player 1's final setup. Player 1's hand cards and chosen cards are empty. This is also the case for player 2 because otherwise the game would not have ended. And player 1 has 6 cards in row 1, 3 cards in row 2, and 1 card in row 3. And now we will score, for example, row 1, which has 0 blue cards, 2 green cards, 1 white card, and 3 red cards, which comes out to a total of 45 points. And we can do that for all the rows. And then we calculate the total sum of points. And row 1, which has 6 cards in it, was the longest row for that player. So the points from that row are doubled. So the total comes out to 114 points for player 1. And we do the same for player 2. And then the player with the most points wins the game. So that's it for the example. I will now give you a few hints on how to get started with assignment 3. So you will need to define your card structs with the members that they need, and also they will need to include everything you need to build a linked list. Then you will also need some functions. You can do this differently, of course, but this is just a recommendation. You will probably need functionality to add a card to the linked list. You will need functionality to remove a card from a linked list. You will also need to print linked lists of cards. Then the next step could be to parse the config file, so you can check if your mechanism for reading in and creating cards works correctly. And then you also need to decide when do you want to sort your cards. You can do that during the reading and parsing of the config file. You can do that after the parsing, or you could also do that only when printing the output, because the output has to be sorted in ascending order. How you store this in your program is your own decision. So decide when to sort those cards, implement the sorting mechanism, and then you can get started on the game rules and game logic itself. That's it for the introduction to A3. If you have any further questions, you can ask them via Discord. There is an A3 forum. You can also ask in person at the question hours, which are currently planned for the 12th of January and the 15th of January. So that's it from me. I wish you good luck with the implementation and happy holidays. Bye.